You hear a lot of Christians say that we have free will, but the Bible actually reveals that we have two wills: the will of the flesh, which follows the patterns of the world, and the will of the Spirit, which follows the will of God. Now we know that everything that God says is a command, so that means everything we do should be based off what He says. Will or no will, it's about what God says. So whether you have free will or you don't have free will, whether you're in the will of the flesh or the will of the Spirit, this is about what God says. There's this thing inside you called the carnal mind that wants to believe opposite of what the Word of God says. And it lives in a reality that is contrary to God. It's called enmity. The carnal mind is enmity against God, for it is not subject to the law of God, neither indeed can be. So how does it become subject? By casting down arguments and every high thing that tries to exalt itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought into the obedience of Christ. So it starts with your mind. Do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. I'm not saying there's no such thing as free will, but this is not the will of God. Once you are born again, He gives you His will. Why would He give you free will if He's given you Jesus? So what you're struggling with is not free will. What you're struggling with is the will of the flesh. And this is the enmity that the scriptures is talking about. They're contrary to one another. That's why you have to put to death the deeds of the flesh, so that you can be subject to the will of God. For if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the flesh, you will live. You as a Christian have been crucified with Christ. The scriptures say, I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. And the life that I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave Himself for me. You as a Christian have been crucified, put to death. You don't have free will. You have the will of God. Not my will, but your will be done, God.